Hey everybody, welcome back to Off the Couch with the Psych Guys. As always, I'm here with Timothy Meyer. I'm Dr. Konstantin Lukin, and holy shit, did you just hear that the Lukin Center YouTube with you on it was just on Joe Rogan Experience? Did you get that memo?
I got the memo.
Holy moly, that's definitely something. Out of all the EMDR videos out there, and there's a gazillion, you know, that one was chosen. So, I mean,
hey,
we're doing something right.
Must be doing something right?
So what I thought we could do is watch the video, and then maybe we can kind of deconstruct a little bit, see if it holds up to the clinical jargon, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
All right, roll the clip.
It's this trauma.
And so do you do it at a specific place?
I do it Zoom. I love to Zoom.
You Zoom?
Yeah.
So you Zoom with someone who guides you through it? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
And you do it how often?
I'm doing it now twice a week, but you can do it once a week.
And how long is each session?
Hour. She'll go longer sometimes though.
Wild.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like the chemicals moving around in your brain while you're doing this?
Yeah. You do. And that's a big part of it is identifying the trauma in the body and how it affects the body. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by, I think his name is Bessel. He's a psychiatrist, and he's responsible for all these trauma centers all over the country. And
so this guy is doing it to this lady right now. Yeah. He's going back and forth with his fingers, and she's following his fingers. And so she's supposed to be thinking about traumatic memories.
So then he'll take her back through the first phase is like identifying the trauma. So it's a lot of talk therapy. So you kind of, talk a lot. And then the therapist gets the idea of what you need to go back and reprocess. And new things will come up when you go back and then you'll reprocess it. It's not just hands. You can do, you can follow a ball. You can hold the buzzers in each hand. It's about stimulating both sides of your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on Joe Rogan, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. From what I hear, there's a lot of followers.
So I also have to say that my form there was perfect.
It's pretty good,
right?
I know, go to the gym. That's why the form is perfect.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
But yeah, so really, I think his name is Giannis. The way that he described it, like.
Right. It's pretty good. I like the Zoom part. What did you think about that he Zooms these sessions? Because I don't know. For some things, I can't imagine it's just as good. I know for couple work, sometimes challenging for like really young kids. But what's the research say about EMDR?
Yeah, so it shows that it works just as well.
Oh.
Which is, it's almost like a little hard to believe. But, really at the end of the day, and it kind of takes like a little bit of a setup here, but you really need to have the person, like if we're doing it on Zoom, either have something on their screen, and there's like a website you can go to with something that moves back and forth. So they look at their screen and they move back and forth. Or sometimes what I do is I'll have people, put like 2 Post-it notes up on the wall and have their eyes go back
and then just go back and
between
forth.
the two. So really, like, as long as you can get the eye movements going back and forth, it's totally fine virtual.
Oh, very cool.
I do prefer in person.
Right.
But yeah, the research shows it works just as well.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing, but I thought a lot of it was pretty good, meaning like it was clinically relevant, accurate. One thing though, first of all, love Joe's haircut. I mean, I think that's. I think more people should go that way. That's one. Two. One of the things he said, like I felt like that was, maybe for kind of a lay person that's not in the clinical field, it could feel that way. That what did he say? The molecules are moving around, or what did he say?
Yeah, he was like, oh, like do you feel the chemicals moving
around?
Oh,
the chemicals,
your brain?
right? Like, I mean, that's not true. I mean, you can't prove or show that to be the case. I mean, I could see how in theory it may seem like that, because to Giannis's point, there is that famous book by that psychiatrist that does talk about that. A lot of it is in the body, but you don't really feel anything necessarily moving. You can't show that to be the case. So that was a little bit off. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So like, it's not that like you feel the chemicals moving around in your brain.
Right.
But like what I think Giannis was kind of alluding to was really like what happens is, when we're like back in those memories and we're kind of like re-experiencing them and we're reprocessing them, right? Like we end up feeling so much in our body.
I see.
Right. And
right,
so
right.
kind of like the whole idea of like the body keeps a score, which is a really, really phenomenal book. It's really like the best book out there nowadays about trauma. Like it really talks about how trauma is stored in our body and really how trauma is stored so much differently than like regular old memories in our nervous system. So
Interesting.
like, so is it common and is it actually really important in EMDR? I ask people this all the time. What do you notice in your body? Where do you feel it in your body?
Where do they usually notice stuff?
Oh, it could be like anything, right?
Could you give, because that's a cool thing to know. I mean, like, although the way they describe it was a little bit more basic, but it would be interesting. What do people typically experience?
Oh, sure. So I guess I'll just come up with something recent. I'm working with this guy about his sexual abuse when he was a child. And I have him kind of go back to the image of the worst part, which is when he's being sexually abused. And as he tunes into that image, I say, "What do you notice?" And he goes, "I feel," and he says, "I feel disgust." And I say, "Where do you feel that in your body?" And he goes, "I feel it like right here, like in my chest and my throat." Right. And then I say, "How strong is that feeling from 0, not at all, to 10 right now as you tune into that image?" And he goes, "I think it's about like a 7. Right. And then I ask for some other things and I say, like, go with it. Right. And so a lot of times people will say, like, yeah, like I'm kind of noticing like that this feeling is like kind of dissipating a little bit, or it changes. It feels more like this. It feels more like that. Right. So it is pretty interesting. So it's not the chemicals are floating around in your body differently and you're feeling that. But really, like, so much of these memories, they're visceral and they're physical and
Tightness and tension, it sounds like.
Sure, right? Like a lot of people notice things like in their chest and in their stomach. A lot of times people might feel things in their downstairs mix-up, if we're talking about like sexual abuse.
Sure.
Like they can kind of like, unfortunately, re-feel
Right.
all of those sensations down there.
Right.
So it's really unbelievable how it is so much of like a mind and body like processing experience, right? And it's really not just up here and whatever. I'm ranting here, but I'm going with it. So much of the time, like we'll end up like talking about our trauma using like the very front part of our brain. So we're very like cognizant and really just like up here in the front.
Right.
But really what EMDR allows us to do is we kind of get into that like deeper level, that more like emotional level, kind of like activate our amygdala, where we really kind of feel and re-experience these things again.
And I noticed you use that word, which we do, or that phrase, which EMDR uses often, go with it. And I know a lot of the times people want to know more about it. What does that really mean? Does that mean like participating more in the experience, to borrow a DBT term? Like, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's really just allowing your mind to go wherever it's going to go. And like I don't want people to get in the way of where they're going to go.
Right.
So in like psychoanalysis, they call that free associating. Right. So like back in the day, like if you're laying on a couch, like the analyst would kind of just want you to just talk and just go and just whatever comes to mind, you just say, like allow your unconscious to sort of pour out. Right. Not the same, but similarly, when people are going through eye movements, I just want them to just observe where their mind goes. And so a lot of times people say like, yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but it just came into my brain, yada, yada, yada.
Wow. So it almost like allowing the trauma to navigate where the thinking's going to go so that you could really do deep healing.
I'll just flip that.
Right.
Allowing your brain and your mind to go where it needs to go
in order to
in
heal.
The trauma in order to heal.
Okay.
Right? So one of the really great things about EMDR that we always trust is that our mind and our brain and our body, right? It always wants to heal itself, and it's always trying to, but sometimes it can't because things are too painful or what have you. So when we're doing this processing, when we're doing this bilateral stimulation, when we're kind of like allowing our brain to process a little bit more effectively, we really don't want to get in the way. We want to allow it to go wherever it's going to go.
I see.
Even if it seems silly to me, like, I don't know why the hell in the world this came up, but you go with it. And a lot of the times, like, you kind of end up like finishing a track, like we call, And it's sort of like, oh my gosh, like their brain really needed to go there. And it seems irrelevant, but a lot of times it's really, really important.
It's interesting though, when that happens, is there like, once the person finishes processing, there's like a theme underlying it, even though in the moment it doesn't look like that, or often it's just like just different memories that are somehow connected, but it's still not very clear?
There's usually a theme.
Okay.
Right? Like similar types of traumas, similar types of experiences, they can kind of like lump together, right? And then there's these things called like feeder memories, which are a little bit too confusing to explain right here on this podcast. But essentially, right? A lot of different events might kind of like pack into one, if that makes any sort of sense.
Sure.
So we might be talking about sexual abuse, but then all of a sudden we might be, what came up might be this like experience from like high school in like gym class or something. And I don't know why, right? But you trust that the mind is going to go where it needs to go in order to heal.
Wow.
And a lot of times the EMDR therapist wants to like step back and step away and not interrupt that process.
Right.
But sometimes we do kind of dive in and do a little bit of this or that to direct.
Sure. No. And Giannis was kind of talking for some of the viewers that are going to watch the whole thing. Does talk a good amount about what happens for him, what kind of traumas he had, how it actually helped him pretty significantly. And he's one of the many actors and actresses out there, and just people in the news that come forward saying how EMDR was helpful, right? When I think that video is a couple of years old, but like at that time, like Prince Harry said something. I think a couple other people in sort of in the news and that are popular were talking about how instrumental it was in their healing.
Yeah. I mean, it's
definitely there, and as Giannis was saying, like there's now MRIs, all sorts of different PET scans that could be done to show exactly what parts of the brains light up when you're doing it, how to do it after the treatment, whether you're seeing any differences. So kind of this neuropsychological bent on things is now just showing how efficacious it really is.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like it seems ridiculous, right? Like
I could see that.
Okay, like bring up your trauma and like follow my fingers and like right off that, like even the first time I heard about this, I was like, yeah, right. All right. But like what we keep finding is like from studies and from patient report and like, especially like celebrities, like we're finding like this works. And I mean, like the good thing about it is, I'm happy that folks like him are able to talk about it and open up, because I think that actually gets people sort of on board.
100%. 100%.
And it's like, I just find it's really just like the coolest thing in the world, like understanding how trauma works and what happens to our brain and how EMDR works and how that works to treat it. It really is just such a cool intersection between neuroscience and psychology. And it's just like unbelievably fascinating.
Yeah, and especially as you get, as like Giannis or other people who've benefited, they really begin to feel different, almost like qualitatively different. Talk about changing how their body feels. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's one of those, I would imagine, rewarding types of treatments. That the person comes in, could sometimes be hopeless, and then through EMDR, really freeing him or herself from some of those painful experiences that could have been there, God knows for how long.
Yeah, so one guy's coming to mind, and this is just like one example of like what I hear a lot. And he's been in therapy for like basically forever. Traumatic childhood, a lot of neglect, abuse, sexual abuse, a lot, right? And then he comes to meet with me for EMDR. And I've been seeing him for like, I don't know, maybe like 3 months now. And he's like, Tim, like I've been in therapy for like 30 years. And like, I've never even known to touch this.
Wow.
Like,
wow, that's powerful.
For example, like, I don't know, like we were processing like one of his memories on the list of worst things. And then he got on this track of like this look that he got from his mom. And we unpacked that look from his mom, and then it led to all of these other things. And he kind of uncovered, like different memories sort of came to the front of his brain. And he's like, oh my gosh. And like to the point where like in one processing, like he stopped me and he stood up and he like walked to the side of the room and he was just like, oh my God, I had no idea that happened.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting in my chair like,
what just happened?
what? And he goes, and then he went through his whole thing. But it's just really, it's just really amazing how much happens when we allow our brain to do what it needs to do and kind of like go into this treatment. It's
wow.
I really can't say enough about it.
Beautiful.
And I also like geek out about it. It's so interesting.
Well, listen, I think that's a good thing to geek out on, because it sounds like it's helping people that are celebrities are benefiting it, so they're spreading the word around, just kind of like based on this conversation. I was so excited to see you on that screen doing what you do best, getting recognition for it. So it's pretty amazing. I think the last thing is that Joe has to come out to this podcast. We could pull up a chair.
I think he does, right?
We got space, got a whole couch back there. Happy to talk further. So if you guys are listening, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I think Giannis did a great job.
Right, that's true.
Right?
That is
like,
true.
From a patient perspective, for him to be able to talk about it like that.
Yeah.
Like pretty spot on.
Yeah.
But like if you want to talk about it more like with the guy who like knows a lot about it and does it, I think we could have a good conversation.
Fly out there, you fly out here, whatever works. Whatever works. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. And as always, see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.